I would now like to call this meeting of the Narragansett Regional School District School Committee to order. Rise for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As a reminder, this meeting is being live streamed and recorded and is available to watch on both of our Facebook and YouTube channels. First item on our agenda for the evening is the approval of the meeting minutes for September 21st. Sorry, those meeting minutes are attached to our agenda. We've all had time to review them. I would entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes for September 21st. Jeff, second one. Moves, the motion was moved by Jeff, seconded by Heather. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Stayed? And I say yes. That vote looks unanimous. Next, moving on to bills and payroll. If you have a warrant attached, you really want to go over it? Over it or
So we have a card warrant for September 27th, $19,311.61. Human Resources AP warrant for $433,355.36 for October 2nd. October 4th, we have payroll $614,466.76. October 6th, we have an accounts payable warrant, $345,979.83. October 6th, we have a middle school student activity warrant for $1,066. October 6th, we have a high school student activity warrant for $9,809.75. October 18th, we have a payroll warrant, $609,596. October 19th, we have a high school activity warrant, $7,352. And October 19th, we have an accounts payable warrant for $236,827.94.
thank you. I would make a motion to approve. I lost my little cheat sheet here.
So
Second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Jane? Yes, it's unanimous. Moving right along to our student representative. Hi, Peter. Thank you for coming back. What would you like to share with us this evening?
There's not a whole lot that I'd like to share. And last meeting we discussed charging students to attend athletic events. So I did kind of talk to people in high school specifically about whether or not they would be willing to pay to attend athletic events, and if they were willing to pay, how much they would be willing to pay. Majority of the kids that I spoke to said that they would not be willing to pay. I don't think that it's an issue of they can't afford it. I think it's just an issue of, like I had mentioned last meeting too, it's like a culture thing, like going to a football game Friday night for free and just hanging out with your friend and cheering with your classmates. And I just think charging for that would remove kind of some de-incentivize students to attend the athletic events. The kids that did say that they would be willing to pay, a lot of them said like $5 kind of would be their maximum. Anything over $5, they wouldn't. They just not. So majority said they would not be willing to pay.
Thank you for getting that information for us. That's helpful. Any events coming up that you want to tell us about?
Yeah, so we have the homecoming dance tomorrow night. The homecoming kind of football game tonight. And then Warrior Fest Saturday. I know a lot of people are looking forward to that. Like I'm assuming.
All right, thank you. It was a pleasure to hear what Peter has to bring to us. Next on our agenda under appearances, we have a teacher recognition opportunity.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Molly so wonderfully presented last month in regards to our MCAS scores, we talked a lot about growth. So it's really about where kids are and where did they get to, and really from the teacher's perspective, we're like, okay, so how did they get them there, and who, you know, at least for this year anyway, had some of the highest growth. So when we start talking about growth, it's very low growth, typical growth, and high growth, and of course, very high growth. And we had two math teachers, one in the 5th grade and one in the 7th grade, who had the two highest growth scores, but they were both in the category of high growth as the state measures. And they weren't able to be here tonight. And that's because they have the same children. And so I know it's not standing. They happen to be married. So Matt Daycray and Lisa Daycray, our 5th grade math teacher and 7th grade math teacher. They must be the family business, because they had the highest math growth scores in terms of how the state recognizes growth. And we asked them here tonight, of course, to be recognized, but they have, well, kid stuff to do. And so we told them that we're going to recognize them. They were very appreciative. We're going to, of course, snap a picture of them both, hopefully, if they'll allow us to, and put them on the face on our webpage. But we wanted to. This is something that we'll be doing more of in terms of recognition. So we'll start talking about assessment. You know, it's really all about growth. You know, when we start looking at, well, in any of their major focuses, and they've done a wonderful job. So. Congratulations again to both Matt Daypray and Lisa Daypray for their high growth scores in math for 2023 MCAS.
Amazing.
It is.
There brought their kids with them tonight. That would
We tried. We tried. But they just had all kinds of stuff going on there, so they just couldn't make it. So yeah. Maybe doing some math. I mean, it's very fun.
I think that's great. We so often focus on just achievement and bottom line,
Right.
and we forget to really take a look at growth, which is so important. Especially when you're looking at kids from one, from the yellow to the green. That's so important. So
Absolutely.
I am proud that they are in our school district, and can't wait to hear about all of the growth for next year. So.
Friend.
Yeah. All right, then we'll move on to our next section here, which is public input. Do we have anyone from the public that would wish to speak? I don't see anyone. Right. Do we have anyone from the NDEA who would like to give us an update? Not look like we do. Moving right along here. So we have the fiscal year 25 budget cycle calendar here. So we have some dates here that we have penciled in so that we can start talking about, actually we're already talking about it, but our fiscal year 25 budget. They're listed here. February 8th would be a possible date for the multi-board meeting. February 28th, the Finance and Facilities Subcommittee would meet to finalize the budget to present to the full committee. March 14th, we have down for our preliminary budget hearings. The public meeting would be opened at 5:30. And the preliminary budget hearing would start at 6. And then March 21st would be our budget hearing. The public meetings are open at 5:30 and then our budget. hearing. All of that.
Yeah, that's the question, Mark. We have a meeting scheduled already on the books for March. It is 7th. So are we not gonna do March 7th and nothing to March 14th?
Do you remember from our committee meeting?
We talked about that as a possibility.
We were gonna leave it on there for possibly in case we needed it, right? Yeah.
So possibility 3 weeks now.
Yeah,
Okay,
we needed it.
okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the school committee meeting that's at 5:30 on February 8th is the same
Yes.
one that's up here.
Yeah, so we're at 5:30, 6 would be the, our meeting, and then we move to the 6 o'clock meeting. All right, ongoing business, our business manager report.
So I have counted all the reports, for this month. The general fund is doing pretty good. We haven't even had to consider a budget freeze yet.
Knock on wood.
People seem to be able to get what they want. I mean, we do have some accounts that are in the red, mostly because price increases for supplies. But we haven't had to turn anything down yet, which is a good thing. The revolving accounts, there's really not much to say about those. The grants, we actually just about an hour ago got final approval on our ESSA grants, which Molly and I have been working on literally since August. So that's pretty exciting. So that's our Title I, our Title II, and our Title IV, even though they're on the list and we're using them. We've just been going back and forth on little details with DESI for final approval. So all of our grants at this moment are approved, which is such a great feeling.
Do we have any questions about our employee? So then we'll move on to new business. We have, looks like we have some surplus items. Got attached here, so workbooks.
So the surplus items are from our English language teacher, and they are essentially outdated and unused curriculum materials that have been replaced with new. So some are, pretty old, discolored textbooks that have been sitting on shelves. And some are some old listening materials as well. They've been replaced with new materials. They're just no longer needed. So we're asking for permission for them to be discarded.
So I would entertain a motion to move to surplus items as presented.
Second.
Nick moved, Jeff second. Any questions, comments? All in favor? Opposed? Abstained?
I was just saying, session.
I said me. Oh, sorry, it was Sean. Thank you. I'm sorry, Sean. Jeff second. I vote yes. That was unanimous. Okay, the athletic ticket price. Is there anything that you wanted to add? We talked a little bit about it in our finance.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, what we chose to do, because there's a lot of it, and you have a lot of information, so they're attached. And the cost for the game, there's revenues, there's area ticket prices, etc. So when we obviously brought the conversation up about ticket prices, and who to charge, and how much. Obviously, we certainly were not talking about this season. This year, really, if you think about this year, we would have to start. It'd be too quick of a turnaround to do that. But what this is hopeful to do is provide more information for a conversation in the future. Because there's a lot there, right? There's a lot to it. If students were to get in free, we need to somehow able, and yes, they do have IDs, but not all the IDs are in yet. So, and they're only from our district, that was talked about, and yes, staff have IDs. So we provided as much information as I think that folks need to look at the financial end of this. But I believe if I am, if I remember correctly, I think a lot of this will probably ruminate, be worked out in finance and then come to the full committee. At such time when we're really able to speak to whether or not ticket prices would go up or down, kids, or staff.
So I attached to the agenda, there's, Mr. Bond gave me a list of all of the area ticket prices for all of the districts around us. There's also a summary of what it costs to run a game, like you can see how much we took in at the gate, the cost of the officials, the ticket sellers, and what we're left with. And then I also attached an accounting, you can see the cost of last year's. You can see the money that was taken in for user fees and gate revenue, and those two items together they don't equal what we spent in supplies. So there's a deficit. And right now, for the past few years, athletic hasn't balanced, and every year we're drawing off of that balance. So it's not a problem, so to speak, this year, but going down the road, it will be. And then I also put on that what the general fund pays for the athletic program, as well as when we had to make all those cuts and ESSER picked up the cost. ESSER paid for a lot of that stuff for the years that we had that. And then this year we were able to put some back into the general fund, but some of it is coming more out of athletic, and school choice is picking up the cost of maintaining the athletic field, the paint stuff. So you can take a look at all of that, and probably at some point in the later date, we'll have a bigger conversation about it.
This is helpful to have it. This is definitely the information we're looking for, and then the proposals are helpful as well. And I know that the athletic ticket price is going to remain a agenda item on the finance facilities subcommittee for the remainder of this year while we talk it out. And so forward to continuing the conversation. And now. Right, moving on, we have an out-of-state field trip. Looks like it's the ecology school field trip. And we have attached the information on here. So, let's see, we have a date, like. Plan, is this a old? I think this is one, it says 9/9/2022.
Anyway, she obviously, Jen. Wrong date.
Same trip though, right?
Yeah, same trip. I
Okay.
don't know. She must have just forwarded back to 2022.
Probably went to go attach it and it came up with this link Mr. Drive.
It is exactly the same field trip as we all remember. I know that the information is correct, meaning in terms of the cost, et cetera.
Okay,
And again, we've already talked at length about the fundraising and how that needs to work, especially if it's a money calendar, et cetera. We talked about that last year, if you remember. So certainly it's a well-attended trip. And, it's one of those trips that we were happy to get back after COVID. Kids certainly love it. And of course, it gets the frameworks, but it's really a very education focused field trip.
do we know the date of the field trip this year?
They are dates of departure. Honestly, it's June, and I'm looking, sorry.
I don't know that would matter. That we're looking at an old farm, I feel like we might.
Yeah,
want
it's-
to make sure.
I can't see,
So
sorry.
last year they went on June 5th through the 9th. It's a Monday through Friday. So they depart the school on Monday and they come to school like what we did last year. They came to school at the normal times. On their bus.
Yeah.
They had a drop off the night before. And returned on Friday.
What I think happens honestly is that because it's when they upload,
It's probably just called the college
It is.
trip and that's
and
probably
they,
going
I
to
think that when they
No
upload
big deal.
ecology field trip info, it took last year's or let's blame Susan, she's not here. So, which is absolutely something that I'm very happy to do. But I have seen the field trip. I have seen the field trip form, of course, and if the committee so wants, we can certainly wait till November. I know that they're trying to do some fundraising fairly soon. That would, I don't believe unless there is a,
I don't think that's.
yeah, really should, we can make sure that the right form gets to you and, add this to Susan's list.
Yeah, I mean, another question of like, are we approving the document or
Right,
approving the
that's where
field trip itself?
We're
And
just
if it's
approving
a
the
tree,
field
that's
trip.
right. All right, yeah.
All right, so then I would entertain a motion to approve the seventh grade ecology school out of state field trip. as presented. So. Heather,
Second.
with Jeff. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Yeah, just that I would like to see the house. Oh, go ahead, Sean.
You'll have to.
Yeah, I think we're next.
I would really like to see the correct. form.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course.
You'll definitely see the right, you have to see the right form because it's signed.
Do you want to
By,
wait
I
to
believe, one of the committee members, but,
What, Dr. Cassidy, what's the pushback if we wait to focus? What I don't want to do is I don't want to put this particular field trip in a situation where they can't start fundraising or anything else, right? So I want to make sure that they can do what they have to do, you know, but on the other hand, I would like a clean process of seeing your actual form. So, you know what I mean? But I don't go back. So where are we with their timeline? I guess is my question.
I would, this is the answer. They can certainly, I approve the fundraising anyway. That's comes from me. So they can continue to fundraise. If you thought that there might be a,
They might be waiting to like confirm the dates
Yeah.
for the company until our field trips officially approved.
if there was a risk that you might consider, you know, to say no, then I would not have them raise money because it's hard to, you know, return donuts and money and stuff. No pressure, but I can always approve the fundraising. It won't stop them. It really would not impair the trip in any capacity whatsoever. So no, it wouldn't have any effect because I'll allow the fundraising to go on. Just wait till next.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would make the motion to hold off. I mean, on the other hand, you know, just to give an idea, I'm personally not opposed to the trip. I would just like to see the right form, just to be clear. So this isn't an opposition at all. I think it's great. I think it's part of the curriculum.
So
Let them go.
I'm going to assume that the form that would be presented would look exactly like this one.
In terms of the frameworks, in terms of all of that, yes. Yeah,
What's
all-
the cost of the trip is approximate on here, the cost of transportation of the
That's what I want to
approximate
see.
on
That's
here.
what I see. I want to see those changes.
Right, I might not see any changes because I think that this is what they typically will put.
When it comes to her costs, one of the driving factors is how many students actually come. So is it 2 buses? Do they break it to the third bus?
Sure.
Because busing was what cost the most on the trip last year.
As long as it's not going to interfere with fundraising or any other things.
Fundraising did come from me anyways, that's, sorry. This one, sorry.
So then do I remove my, should I do? Okay. So I would entertain a motion to table this until next month.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? See? Yes. Abstaining. Until next month. All right, now moving on to the MASC conference resolutions. So these were sent out by Heather a few days back in attached in PDF form. Heather is our MASC liaison. Did you want to speak to the resolutions before we start talking about how the process works? Can you give a little for our new folks some background on what the resolutions are?
Yes, let me just, I clicked out of the page.
You don't have them memorized?
No, I don't have. So every year, MASC puts forth their resolutions, and I mentioned in, the information I sent out that these are akin to like our New Year's resolutions. So these are, their action items, the things that they want to, whether it be contact legislators for, lobby for, towards, these are their, sort of member-driven goals for the year. This year, there are 8 resolutions, and this year they're actually all put forth by our fellow school committees. They've gone through wordsmithing with the MASC's resolution subcommittee, and the vote for them is on the first day of the joint conference in November. Yep. Lots of my up there.
That's okay.
How would you like to do that?
So we have some options here. We can either, since everyone has had the resolutions for the last couple of days, we can choose to vote on all of them in their entirety, or we can separate them out and just read a little bit about each and vote on them separate. We are allowed to have discussions about that. Yes.
So if we want to go through each one, we would have to do, we'd have to read the resolution. Typically might skip the background info, which is all the whereas, and read the action step. And as far as procedure, we would need to have a motion in a second, and then we can have discussion before we.
Is there any way to like technology wise to upload this to the community? Okay, like so that they just see what we're talking about, so we don't have to read it?
Well, we would only, if we read it, we would only read the resolution and then the last line where it says, therefore be it resolved, rather than going through all of them. Do we have to make a motion to vote all at once, or?
I think we can just go one by one.
Okay.
Yep.
Then we'll go one by one. So I'll read the first part. The resolution back up here. So resolution 1 is referred to as the full stable funding for Metco. I scroll down to the bottom here. Therefore, be it resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees calls upon the governor and the legislature to create a stable funding structure to support Metco and its partner districts that fully funds the support provided by Metco and the cost of providing services delivered by Metco's partner district. Entertaining motion to approve resolution 1, the full stable funding for Metco. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, so currently we already have issues with funding regional transportation. I think my concern with this is where is the additional funding, what kind of fund that we have now? Where's the additional funding will be coming from? Do we know that?
Well,
I mean, I know we're asking the legislation for it, but if they can't fund what we already need, we already require, why would we be asking for additional funding? I think that's my concern. That's definitely my concern.
So if this helps, I can read this up. There was a learning lunch put on by MASC. And so the reporting is what I linked to. So it helps to read it on. This is my notes from Ben Butcher. I think he spoke to this one. He said, Metco stands for Metropolitan Council for Educational Opportunity. It's a vital program that is totally subject to appropriation in the legislature, which means that they have to spend all their time lobbying for funding every year. It's not guaranteed funding. So what this resolution is looking for is a plea and from MASC to the legislature to look for a formula. I know in a chapter 70 for them to have for the expectation when it comes to. So they're looking for look everything else.
Yeah, and I think adopting this is going to shoot ourselves in the foot because it just means they're going to be looking for someplace else to take the funding for, and we can't even fund the existing regional transportation. So that's a huge concern for me.
Comments?
failed to make this clear. I was like, this is where I lost my train of thought. So in our reorganization meeting, which I know a couple of you came in after that organization meeting, we voted on various, officers or positions and delegate to the assembly for resolutions for NRSD. We voted for one of us to go and be the delegate. So that's a very large assembly. It's like about 130 representatives from school committees and a humongous school committee meeting. So we only send one person to go. So that would be my role is to go, and I'm going to vote. We will as our committee, not my individual interpretation. So what I need to get out of us today is an idea of how do we as a majority in our committee feel about this, and how do we want to.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain? And I vote yes. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes. 2, no.
So 5 is majority plus 1.
All right, so we'll move on to the second resolution regarding investigations and recommendations for transportation bidding procedures. Therefore, be it resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees prevail upon the Office of the State Auditor to investigate the bidding practices of school transportation providers and to present such findings and recommendations as may be necessary to contain costs and make more efficient transportation services available for public schools. Entertain a motion to approve the second resolution.
Second that, right?
Someone to go.
I'll move it.
You second.
I'm learning this.
Okay, so moved. Okay, so that's Kat. Who wants to second it? Second it. Heather will second it. Any questions, comments? Yeah.
So I'm gonna have a very simple concern here. Wondering, where the funding for this committee is coming from. Are they going to hire new people to do this? Where is that headed? Do we have any idea where it's coming from?
Yeah,
I
so
just don't want to I don't want to be pushing them to establish something that's going to take money from an existing committee.
So the background from this is, I mean,
It's okay.
the sponsoring district that submitted this, what they're finding is that they will go out to bid for school buses. And only one company will answer back. And they get total control, because they answer back, and bid goes up, bid goes up, bid goes up. So what they're looking for is, they're looking for the Attorney General's office.
But that's, and I understand that it's going to be, I guess my question would be, is it coming from the existing manpower that they have in the Attorney General's office? Or is this going to be establishing new positions that's going to be taken from the transportation?
I think that's gonna come up on, the Attorney General's office.
Actually, state auditor says.
State auditor, thank you.
Yeah, I did read that in there. I just don't know if that's existing within the existing personnel.
Is that a problem for us?
They've already called and requested that information. So, yeah, I've got my last bids already.
Yeah. Also, the auditor's
The
office.
state auditor's office called already, yeah.
So they're doing this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to investigate that. So do we need?
So when it comes to sitting at the, right now, it's a resolution that'll be on the floor. And also those resolutions, just like when we are motioning here, they can make amendments on the floor too. So,
So they're already doing it, and they're not actually asking for legislation to do this, they're just stressing upon it to do it.
There it is. There it is.
Huh?
There it is. We could just say.
Yeah.
keep the fire, keep the fire.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed?
Sorry, I was still.
Let's try that again. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? And I vote yes. Unanimous. Move on to resolution 3, which is regional transportation. Now we're going.
This one has 2 pages. We're going to your attention.
For hearing.
Yep.
Okay, therefore it be resolved that in such case where a pupil resides greater than 1.5 miles from the school of attendance measured by a commonly traveled route, the Commonwealth reimbursement does not fully cover the amounts expended for such transportation. The regional school district may allow pupils to opt out of such transportation or may charge a fee that an aggregate may not exceed the differential between the amounts expended for furnishing transportation and the Commonwealth reimbursement. Be it further resolved that the NRSD encourages the legislator to modify Mass General Law Title 12C7116C with the aforementioned proposed language for alternative and the period to provide regional districts the ability, if so desired, to charge a transportation fee that an aggregate cannot exceed the differential between the and that the Commonwealth reimbursement and the regional school district transportation expense for any people that resides greater than 1.5 miles from the school of attendance measured by a commonly traveled route. Pupils may opt out of transportation and not be subject to a transportation fee. I would entertain, but do you want to give us a little bit?
Oh, no, go for it.
Okay. All right. I would entertain a motion to accept resolution 3 or vote
As written.
as written for regional transportation.
So,
Well, I actually have a question about this because.
Well, let's
Okay.
and
Second, and then you
Yeah.
can question.
all those.
I'll second.
Yes, John second. Questions, comments?
So growing up and now as a parent, seeing the other side of things and as a teacher, seeing like families that struggle to get their kids to school in any capacity. And if they're young and they're home left alone while their parents are gone to work and you have an 8-year-old that needs to walk 1.5 miles to school, like I get a little concerned that like we should be providing like a steady, safe transportation for them without a fee that's going to the family. So that's my only thought on this.
Yeah.
We currently transport kids that need to be transported. We don't charge them a fee. We just, those that are in that 1.5 mile radius from the school, I can't count those for my reimbursement. So we actually do transport within reason. You know, obviously, if you live across the street from the school, we're not. But let's face it, we have no sidewalks in either of our towns. We're out there. So we are transporting kids.
So the fee would only be applied to people who can afford it?
Well,
It would be up to the district to decide that.
Just as a reminder, schools are generally located in populous areas. Thus, more buses. So I just simply say from the need counter that that at some point that, again, maybe not so much here, right? Because we, you know, actually, we've done involved with large bus stops. One of these issues, I think, is that trying to maybe cut transportation costs. Right? So, if it was 100% reimbursed, I would just simply say that why not? Let's go for it. Right? But it's not. Busing is not 100% reimbursed. And so I just throw that out and say kind of we do the right thing. But God forbid if we have to get to the point where I know, you know, a bus is how much per day? 300. No.
Yeah, like one bus, like almost probably 80,000 a year.
So it's $80,000 a year. I just throw that out there that if you're busing every child, right, that it's a cost to the district or to the towns or whatever. So I just saw that as something to kind of weigh.
and again, we can't fund what we currently have.
Yeah, I was, we have 2 buses, right? We have a double run right now, for example. to a very, matter of fact, it's fairly close, it's probably not
Well,
to bottom.
like honestly, the mile and a half, there wouldn't be
Difference.
any children coming to high school riding on a bus from here to the center of Baldwin. But we have a ton that too, because that's what's safe. I think that they're throwing this out there to say to you, well, if you want to cut costs, this is a good reason to do it, but we don't have like their situations aren't the same as ours.
I mean, I could see how, like, high schoolers could potentially walk a mile and a half and be safe, like, they're old enough, they're getting there, but an 8-year-old, 5-year-old, I don't agree with that, so, I don't know. You have to agree with the whole thing, and we make our own amendments to it.
She's got to bring it back to a level, right? So
Yeah.
Well, they might make amendments to it too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So when they talked about this in the information session, that was on October 6th, the sponsoring district did not have any representative show up at that webinar. So the assistant director of MAC, Glenn Kuchar, he said this, everybody finds this to be actually not very clear.
Yeah.
Because when I read it opposite. It's talking about students greater than or not.
And that is what it says. That's why I'm reading it again.
It's
Like
talking
it's
about
greater
charging
than one.
a district charging that differential. That's not covered to students who are greater than a mile and a half. So. Yeah. Yeah. So the basic MASC expects a lot of clarifying amendments from the sponsoring school district. On the floor. But to me, a concern from how I'm understanding this, if they're charging the students, what's not reimbursed, because we know it's not never all reimbursed. What's that going to do to truancy rates and attendance at school and
Especially if kids can't come because they can't be transported, and
I'd like to see the revision to this.
yeah. So right now our motion is worded so that we can be careful with how we're voting. We worded our motion to accept resolution 3 as written. So think about what is a yes mean, was a no, and we take our vote. And I can see where they do.
I'm making sure that they got it wrong, right? All right, so
Everybody ready?
everybody ready? All in favor?
no.
Sorry. All opposed?
Yes.
Abstain? And I vote no. So that's
Unanimous.
Unanimous no, thank you.
okay.
Can I just say one more thing? Emery, I'm happy here that we do pick up those kids. I can just say, as sitting in that line at TES, dropping off my kids when they were smaller, seeing that sidewalk was not shoveled during the winter and seeing all those kids, with parents helping. It was always a concern of mine. So I just want to say, I didn't know that. So I'm glad that we do that.
Second that.
All right, resolution 4, we're halfway there. All right, resolution 4, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Therefore, be it resolved that the MASC recommends that all districts adopt the position of DEI coordinator to work towards an anti-racist school system.
I did give one clarifying
Yeah.
thing. There already is expected to be an amendment on the floor to, it only says anti-racist to include all aspects of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that is already an amendment expected on the floor in the resolutions.
For a coordinator, like a specifically a coordinator position, or just that they adopt?
And when it talks about, and they therefore be it resolved that the DEI coordinator to work towards an anti-racist school system. They wanted to make sure that it wasn't only talking about race.
Okay. All right, ready to motion to I keep saying accept, but what's the wording? We should just be saying.
Accept.
Oh,
Accept the resolution.
the resolution, yeah, it is accept, right?
Yep.
Accept. The resolution, number 4, for diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Motion.
Got moved. Okay. Any questions, concerns, comments? Sean?
Yeah, who's funding the DEI coordinator?
Second.
I know you're gonna ask.
What do we got?
Ask who's paying for this.
That's what Sean said.
Well, I actually would ask that, but I guess my question would be more that it recommends the district adopt a position of DEI coordinator. I'd like to know what districts have not adopted that, you know, which ones are not doing that?
Right.
It's not like, it's a recommendation, it's not it's not something that we're mandated to do, so I'm not opposed to that, but I think I'm a little concerned about some of the, this came from, it's came from the division, amended by the resolution. Oh, it's been amended by the resolution, I mean, I guess I'm a little bit,
It's like we have to remind everyone. Oh, I hate
Yeah.
some questions.
yeah. I guess if it's a recommendation, I just don't think I'm really opposed to it, as long as it's not mandated, because I would be concerned if it's a mandate, that I would prefer to have teachers than a different position. So,
Do you think that it could be a teacher that takes on the extra responsibility of like finding the professional development and stuff that incorporates that into the system? I don't know if it might be a stipend maybe instead of like a position.
I think by that same recommendation that leaves the power in the hands of the
Yeah.
district
yeah,
to,
You can't mandate.
no.
Right,
A lot of things might have some percent of that too.
Also to point out from last year, we had a subcommittee for that. And then with Molly coming on as new, she had some suggestions. And so we changed that. And so it's not an actual subcommittee of this school committee. It's a separate group comprised of all different stakeholders. So I think that was nice that we were able to have the flexibility to do that. So I think that still falls in line with what this is saying.
All in favor?
I
Opposed? Stayed?
I abstain.
And I vote yes. 6 in favor. Yep, abstain. Resolution 5, Massachusetts School Building Authorities. And be it further resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees calls on the Massachusetts legislature to enact legislation raising the fine for passing a stopped school bus to a significant scheduled fine. I am, I'm so sorry.
It's like,
Oh, I'm sorry, it goes up and over, silly me. Yeah, that didn't really make much sense, did it? Massachusetts School Building Authority, I was very passionate about that.
yes.
We'll get to that in a minute, anyway. Let's see, be it further resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees calls upon the Massachusetts School Building Authority to create the accelerated repair program for 2024 applications. And be it further resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees calls upon the Massachusetts legislators who have allowed public preschools to be included in the accelerated repair program and work program. Does anyone want to make, I would like to entertain a motion to. Take a second. Questions, comments?
I mean, let's make sure. I don't quite understand it.
Do you have any notes from your meetings for?
I don't know why I didn't write down.
Presently, it is a cap
Yeah,
on how much they can spend a year, plus they close down. Yeah. Yeah, program, a couple of years. This month. We'd like to get that better.
Was the repair program preschool?
Well, they want to add some school into, like here, we need.
And Hank, I think, again, money's always my concern, and they have the $800,000 capital on there. the program was, suspended because of funding. You know what I mean?
Inflation. So
Yeah.
buildings were in process. They were shooting up anywhere between 10 and 20% more. And so they had to stop projects because right, yeah, I think they didn't factor in 9% of inflation, for example, which then closed down the green repair, saying, whatever, because it's, windows, doors, roofs. So they've, again, you're right, it's certainly not money. They hadn't seen this kind of issue before until this, just last year with the unprecedented.
Well, and even with the building code, we've got the energy code now, and you do all these additional problems, everything else kicks in, and it's going to make the project more expensive. So it wasn't shut down because of a lack of funding with the 800,000 cap. It was shut down because the projects that were in the works
Right.
were exceeding the 800,000 cap. Okay.
So wouldn't that be the same today though? So if they pick up where they.
What they're saying is they want to remove the cap so the projects can go through. However, that would probably allow less projects to go through. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's first come, first served.
Well, priority, they have, they do by priority.
And are the preschools parts of the Mainland schools? Like, why would they add it separately unless they were a separate entity?
This particular district that submitted it, they said they had a building that is just a preschool.
So they, is that part of the middle school? Like in Keene, for example, in Keene, New Hampshire, they have a school district, but they have one specific preschool designated and, whatever, 1 through K through whatever, and then another, but wouldn't that be considered under the umbrella of the district? So why would they add it separately unless they're talking about like private preschool?
Well, this is submitted by Wachusett, so it's a neighboring school district, so somebody may know.
Well,
If the preschool is.
statutes written, it's just K 12.
Yeah.
So, and most schools have a preschool built into it. It's separate,
They have a separate building, so they can't.
right?
Fine.
And that's within the sphere of its.
Not like at TDS where it's.
No.
On and on.
Yeah.
One other thing, and I don't know if there's any discussion on it, working with the Mass Building Authority. I don't know that I'm opposed to removing the cap, but they're not just leaving it open-ended. So I think this going through, they're gonna look for another cap. It may not be 800,000, but they're gonna be looking for a cap. So this going through the way it is not going to, it's not gonna go through. Have they
Yeah.
talked about putting a dollar amount for the cap?
And I'll be curious to see what other amendments are from that.
Okay.
Which is why all the discussion is important. Because if an amendment really changes the nature of it, this gives me a better feeling
We
of
should be
how,
bringing, we should be
how we
bringing,
will.
should be bringing up those notes back, because they're not gonna accept the cap.
Yeah.
Just not gonna happen.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like, I think preschool should always be involved in the public system, like, I don't think that should be a separate entity, even though it is, I know that's probably a totally different topic altogether, but I would want to say yes to that, but then also preschool to the, money for it, because I don't understand, I want more information. If you want to bring that to comments, that's all.
Yes, they can.
Yeah.
No, I'm definitely, I'm also very appreciative of that because whatever notes I don't take, I have the video to come back to. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Sorry, opposed? Abstained? And I vote yes.
Abstain, just like you're answering, right? That's not, I'm abstaining.
Abstained?
Yeah.
Changes to 6. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. All right. Solution 5. So that now you're on 6.
Now I'm on 6. Look at, now I can go back over here.
Yes.
Okay. Now the school bus. School bus stop armed surveillance act and enforcement penalties.
Page 2.
Therefore, and be resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees call on the Massachusetts Legislature to enact legislation to pass into law the ability for cities and towns to install on all school buses live digital video detection monitoring systems for the purpose of enforcing violations against the owner of a motor vehicle fails to do required to do so by law. And be it further resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees calls on the Massachusetts Legislature to enact legislation raising the fine for passing a stop school bus to a significant schedule of fines as penalty, whether witnessed by a police officer or recorded by a digital video detection monitoring system. Rationale, the significant safety concerns present when a vehicle passes a stopped school bus, embarking or disembarking passengers are endangering our students in Massachusetts. Presently, unless witnessed by a police officer, the penalties for passing a school bus are minimal. If the registration related to the offending vehicle is reported by the bus driver, there is a minimum fine. Requiring a police officer to witness the violation prevents appropriate law enforcement actions from taking place, especially for repeat offenders. Allowing the installation and utilization of digital video detection monitoring systems on school buses will allow for appropriate law enforcement action, provide for monitoring and data pertinent to the safety concern, and serve as a deterrent to drivers who are contributing to the safety issues. Protecting the safety of our students is a entertain a motion to accept resolution 6. So moved. Oh, second. Okay. Chad, second. Any questions, comments, discussion?
Yes. So what we're asking is for cities and towns to legislate private companies to put this on their buses. How is that gonna work?
So for them to,
Yeah. No, absolutely.
I don't know, I was just saying, I think
So
my
the
understanding,
school buses are private companies.
right. And my understanding was for the law enforcement to be able to use.
No, on the first one though. So let me see. Enact legislation passed into law the ability for cities and towns to install on all school buses live digital video detection monitoring systems.
That's the ability to.
Well, it's the ability, but it's not, the town is requiring private company to do that.
And secondly, if they don't, does that take them out of the running
Exactly.
for?
And if they do, the price of transportation is gonna go through the
The
roof.
price just went up on.
Yes.
So, in I don't know, if this is the energy behind the resolution, but that would be something that the bus company could be made to do.
Understand.
So you're right, it's gonna cost, and your bid might go up, like some bus companies may not, it might get around the fact somehow that they don't have to do it. So in other words, there are some basic things that buses have to have regardless. And if, maybe this is the resolution says, yeah, well, one of those automatic things are in fact a system in which they can watch. I don't know that, but you're right. No matter what you ask for, it's probably certainly going to be put into the bid, right?
And I would prefer to see it as a fine enacting the laws for that. However, in the RFP, put it out there in the RFP that you would prefer buses with digital video monitoring equipment.
Can we let Mr. Fountain speak?
Absolutely.
I just happened to hear that the detection system was to detect the owner of the vehicle. When isn't it the fact that the driver is the offender? Just curious as a point of verbiage.
It is, so Peabody, they're one of the sponsoring, I think it was Peabody and Marlboro, but I don't know what this was Peabody and Marlboro. They own their fleet and they said they've already put, I want to say it was a grant, I can't remember what grant they said it was, and they obtained the funding to put the detection system on their fleet. They're in the information gathering stage. So they're gathering, like, kind of a census data, you know, and it all, you're right, it's detecting the registration. So the owner is getting, if law enforcement's going to use the information, if the owner was going to get it. But that happens when you go through tolls,
Sure,
right?
sure. I mean, it's the only way you can really detect.
That's why no one drives my car. Not even my husband.
just want to say, one of the things I noticed a lot on our town Facebook pages or school pages is parents' concerns for their kids getting on or off the bus. You know, I know there was a discussion maybe at the beginning of this year about buses trying to park a certain way, but that's illegal. They can't. Parents' concerns about, you know, if their child's bus stop is on a main road. So I know that there is a lot of concern in this district, at least, about the safety for their kids. That was one, but I wanted to make a second one, which it does somehow relate to this, but, and Emery, I don't know if you can answer this. I noticed buses don't have that swinging arm on the front, or do some, and some don't. It's just for the safety of the child to get on or off the bus.
It's probably the model of the bus.
Okay.
I know our drivers would definitely be in favor of having that on their buses, because I can't tell you how many times they tell you that the people just fly through their lights. Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
All right.
Abstain? Here's some, it's 5.
I'll shut up.
Yeah. Resolution 7 related to MCAS. Therefore, be it resolved that the MASC urges Massachusetts to develop a wider, more consensus-built strategy for an evaluation system with meaningful input from legitimate stakeholders. That MASC urges the state legislature to launch a comprehensive evaluation to investigate the extent of biases pertaining to MCAS testing and make these results public. That MASC urges Massachusetts to adopt a moratorium on MCAS testing effective immediately. And then MASC urges Massachusetts to develop an alternative to the high-stakes MCAT test. Entertain a motion to accept resolution 7 related to MCAS.
So
Moved.
Second.
Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns? Jeff?
Yeah, although I absolutely love the idea of it, okay, and then my concern again is who are they going to get? Who's going to be the comprehensive evaluation to investigate the extent of the biases? If I'm not mistaken, it was the legislator that actually enacted MASC, I mean, the MCAS to begin with. I mean, I'd actually like to. I don't know what this one confuses me. I definitely, I love the idea of doing it. I just don't. I'd actually,
you want to?
I think I'd like to dictate more on who the comprehensive committee would be, you know what I mean? Involve, I don't know, teachers, well, I'm sure it was anyways. I think that would be my concern. I don't know how to win. How would Chris, how would we like to, I mean, I just want, I know it seems a little bit open-ended to me, I guess, is what my concern is. It seems a
Maybe
little bit
like having
open-ended to me.
stakeholders, like having principals, having superintendents, having special education teachers,
I guess,
having
yeah, I just don't.
teachers
know
in
who the
different
original committee was.
school in different grades.
100 years ago, when they did the MCAS, it really was born from the development.
Yep.
They had a very, like 6 to how many people they had, but it was teachers, parents, administrators, it was a whole, it was a pattern. So,
I love the idea of it. I would love for MASC to come up with it instead of the legislature. Instead of the legislature, you know, again, let them to a committee or make recommendations or something like that on what the MCAS would be, as opposed to the legislation doing it.
I do have a question about this, because I don't have to deal with MCAS at my grade level, but I don't know, Dr. Caspan, if you might have an answer for this. If this is passed, if this goes through, are teachers allowed in the interim of when something new comes out and when this is gonna get, like, go? are we as a district allowed to come up with our own idea of what that test would be?
So I think if I understand this right, first off, I believe it's a valid question this year, what the MCAS's graduation requirement. Remain a graduation requirement. It never said that MCAS would go away. So just as a aside, because you do need an assessment, right? So the answer to that, I would believe would be no. Teachers would not be able to probably pick their own, sense of assessment. Department of Ed would, DESI would probably, if something had to be crafted, they're the governing body, so to speak. In terms of what our assessments look like and what they don't look like. We'll be interested to see in November if, how much traction that has with MCAS being a graduation requirement. I think the MCAS is here to stay because we still are required to have some idea of where we're at in terms of our standards.
It's really two different things happening here.
Yeah.
What we're talking about coming up in November is to dissolve the connection between graduation
Right,
and
yes.
MCAS. But MCAS would still be a way of collecting information
Sure.
regarding growth and achievement for each district. But this resolution is talking about looking at the MCAS in terms of its biases and how that is impacting students and districts.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not legislation.
It's just,
It's just
it's what we're gonna work on.
lobby. Legislation.
Yeah.
My problem I have with it is that stopping it before they have something in place in the law. That's my concern.
The reason why I went back to the fact of what's being voted is that I don't believe this is a resolution, I get it, but they still are required by statute to have an assessment that, so the MCAS, I can't imagine would just go, you can't take it away because it's the other part of the statute, right? That it says you gotta assess or have the ability to assess. That's my only point, is that I don't see any of this going anywhere, quite frankly, because unless someone's gonna say that we're gonna literally at the state level, and it's still type of federal. right?
It's my fault, the whole accountability.
It's how you are accountability, everything, you just don't see this going away. I don't know, but
It's not just talking about tests.
no, it's a whole of it. It's a way of life, unfortunately. I don't say that, happily.
So I guess sorry, no, my question would be to the people bringing this forward, Heather. What is the outcome of this to make it more equitable for everyone to receive the same amount of information to be able to take the test?
So in this resolution, there's the action step, and therefore be it resolved. It has 4 bullets. The first one is talking about the continued development of the test, the assessment evaluation system. My key takeaway from that is with meaningful input from the legitimate stakeholders. So, to Jeff's point, I think they're not really saying that here we're gonna put forward as our legitimate stakeholders. There's already some that they must have contacted when they first created the tests and whatnot, but, Jeff's point where I'm saying, like NASC to not just say, we want you to fix it, here's how we want you to fix it. Is that fair?
That's one option.
Yeah.
Can we just say we'll accept it with some of the bullet points?
I don't think it's a resolution. I think you have to.
No, but for.
You can just bring comments back, yeah.
There's some amendments back and they throw out one of the ends, do we feel?
I mean, I circled the last bullet, like MASC urges Massachusetts to develop the alternative to the high stakes MCAS tests, then they should bring us the alternative, right? To view and to say, yes, that's great, or no.
Yeah,
Isn't that what it is ultimately saying?
reject it with comments.
That would tie back into the stakeholders, right, giving feedback on the placement.
Well, I'm reading that as the MASC is telling Massachusetts that we need to develop.
So they, but if they are, then, well, I don't know.
Well, so legislature put in that there needs to be and it's an evaluation system, right? But it's a Department of Ed that created.
Oh, the MCAS?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
well,
actual-
it's always approved by the Board of Education, right? So let me be clear, but
Yeah.
Desi, I'm sure, was tasked with, honestly, I can't remember. I'm sure they farmed it out.
Yeah. But that last bullet is asking into the alternative to the legislation to be involved in creation of the term. Not just. Yeah.
I guess I mean, I would love to see an alternative to access that makes people stressed, really upset and, you know, teachers cringe and all this stuff, but I mean, what is it? I guess is the question that comes down to me. You know? I just those are the comments that I said that, and I think abstain.
To. Who gets which vote?
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Are you opposed or do you?
Or abstaining. I need more information. No, I think I don't know.
Yes. Two. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes.
Jeff said
One,
no.
I said,
And, oh, can't say no.
Said no.
I see. So yes, yes, no, no, abstain. Did you vote?
You did vote yes.
So that's 3 yes. 2 and 2. So geez. So.
So I,
Yes, it's two no's and three.
okay, get those math teachers in here.
Where's the tape breaks?
All right. I'm at-
and it depends on, so we always use abstains, mean a no here. Although I know in other places, Robert's
Oh.
rules abstain is an absent. So we can not count it. So, going with what we kind of did years I've been here,
You have 3, yes. always.
we had 3 yes, 2 no, 1 abstain.
The 3 would be no.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Amy,
Oh.
sorry.
Oh, but I expect that the debate on the floor is gonna be like this, and there's gonna be 1,000 amendments from back and forth. But having we kind of had different comments from every bullet point. I would say is a different best.
Yeah. that's-
We
yeah.
know you'll do your best.
You'll have to
Yep.
listen to everything.
Yep.
Well,
Danielle, should I ask a question in general?
So after this conference, you know, the meeting that Heather attends, we'll have this back on our agenda to, I guess, for Heather to discuss the breakdown of it.
When we are, we're almost in, yeah,
Yeah, okay.
when we come back from the conference, there'll be a briefing.
Yeah.
What's the reading?
We're gonna need some snacks.
All right, we are on the last resolution, folks. So resolution 8, safe storage of firearms.
So it's below, keep going down. On a point for you, it's right there.
Okay, therefore, be it resolved that MASC recommends all districts to urge their superintendent and staff to create an appropriate communication to parents and guardians that explains the importance of secure firearm storage to protect children and teens from unauthorized access to unsecured firearms and their legal obligations consistent with Massachusetts safe storage law. Be it further resolved that MASC urges other communities to work with their local law enforcement agencies, health agencies, and nonprofit organizations to collaborate in increased efforts to inform district parents and guardians of their obligations regarding secure storage of firearms in their homes and vehicles. I would entertain a motion to accept resolution 8, safe storage of firearms. Okay,
Second.
Jack, any questions, concerns, comments?
Yeah, my comment would be just as it's written, they've already recommended to the districts, since we're having this discussion tonight, it's already, isn't it? It really is. So. Fine, so it's a recommendation. I don't have an issue. I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea.
I also had some feelings about this, but I feel like, one, I'm sad that we're here as a committee talking about this. And I really feel bad that it has to be put on like the superintendent's shoulders, that this kind of safety should be talked to by at school. And so in that way, I'm like, what? But in the other way, I'm like, of course I want to keep these kids safe, you know? So, I mean, why wouldn't we say yes? But it's kind of sad that it's come down to school districts doing this.
I have to say, I was a little concerned when I started reading it.
I know you were, because ready.
I just want to say, Kath, I was going to say pretty much exactly what you said. Of course, this is a very important topic, but the more that I sit on this board, the more I learn about what other things we do as a district other than just educating or, educating the students. And so to ask Dr. Cassian and his team to do one more thing, it just seems like, where does it end, conversations need to be had at home as well, and we can't always, the district shouldn't have to enforce that. That's, I think, the parents' role as well. So I'm just always so mindful of everything extra. I guess I look at it as extra that we do, and this to me feels just one more thing. I mean, we do Alice training, right? We train our teachers, we talk, we are now going to start talking to our students again about it, and it all ties in, but it just seems like, this conversation needs to be had with parents to start, and not with the superintendent.
Yeah.
Right, you gotta tie it in with the Alice training during this plan.
Yeah. So does it feel so?
Yeah, because I also feel like, when I read this, I also felt like a lot of flack, recommended, like I think Stan's gonna get a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls, a lot of like not happy things about him coming out and like proposing, talking about this, and not that I'm saying that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to say this in a way that makes sense, I guess, but
I know what you're saying.
no, yeah, okay.
And I think that what Vic says makes sense to try to stay ahead of
Yeah.
that. It's linked into,
Yeah.
Alice drill and Alice training, then it's sort of just slow, and it's just something that has to be done separate.
I think Kat, your point, like in a sense, it's like, how dare the school district tell me about, as a parent, what I'm gonna do with my kids in my home. And
Right.
this is, when they're in school, then they follow the school rules. When they're at home, and it's at home, and I can definitely see that. I mean, we get a lot of emails about rainy days and snow days, never mind, it's an important topic of gun control. I don't need to make light of this at all.
I just want to make another comment that, I don't know, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, we just got a letter out somewhat related to this matter, somewhat related to this matter. So this district is already doing that, we're already on top of that, we're already urging safety, for firearms and things like that, so. In this district here, I don't think it's a big issue. Thank you for that. Everybody.
We've had one, we've had one or two Fridays.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All in favor?
I
Opposed? Abstaining? Yes.
for you, yeah, 6.
So we have one last thing, one last thing
For resolutions.
for resolutions, but there was also, they're tagging in there, a proposal to amend the NASC bylaws. So
That's right.
would you like me to just go for it? Okay. It's badly formatted, but on the last page of that PDF, on the top above that line. Yeah, I didn't format it. But the proposal to amend the MASC bylaws, as you can imagine, having just done this for 8 of them, right now, there's no sunset period for those bylaws, for the resolutions, excuse me, saying the wrong word. So they just keep adding resolutions and adding them and adding them and adding them. So all they're doing is saying, we want to be able to clean the plate. So they want to give a sunset, an expiry date of 3 years from adoption.
Yeah.
There is a process that for re-adoption, if they want to say, well, we're not done working on MCAS, we want to keep going, they can re-adopt. So it keeps us fresh and current. So it's not a resolution, but it's actually because MASC is a member driven at this annual business meeting, also going to vote on the bylaw. So we do need, how we as a member, a single member here, how do we feel this committee on that? Okay, so.
So
Kind of
I would entertain a motion to approve. You got it, okay.
Second.
Any comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Yes?
I think it was Hank and then Sean.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Hank.
And unanimous.
Whew,
Thank you.
okay. Moving on, do we have any items not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours before the meeting? I don't think we do.
Yeah.
Okay, superintendent report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, right off the bat, I'm going to start off that we presented, and everyone knows, a bit of one question survey out in regards to, some feedback that we received last year. We had 8 snow days last year. And, some folks were, asking if we maybe have made the call too early, and thus maybe 2 of those days could have been actual speeches. So I don't know what that is. But it was trippy. So. You have this and, in your, but, we haven't put a survey out that's had this much, action ever. So 781, I think it's 781. And, quite frankly, it landed right where we thought it would be, but, we're gonna do these more. And again, 1 or 2 question surveys. We had some people, when we closed the survey, actually call central office to make sure that their votes were counted. And so I thought that was just really cool. I do, I mean that. And so I appreciate that folks took it seriously, and they certainly did. But as you can see, 73% of the respondents, or 575 people, said, yeah, we'd like to be, in the morning. I say this, that there are times when I would love to make the call at night, and I won't, because I can't. Right, because it's too close to call until the morning. So, it's not like this, this is how it's gonna be forever. But when we can, when we think it's confident enough, that the weather is going to be, nasty, well, we know that folks would like to have some, type of more, at least as much time as possible to prepare. And so we're gonna do a little bit more about, we're gonna do 1 or 2 question surveys as they come up, to help us, inform our decision making on a bunch of topics. And I don't want to go as far as to say to do 1 every month or whatever. It'll be, if we're looking at proposed with a, question, we'd like to get some quick feedback. So, yeah, very, very, very well attended. So it was great. The AP recognition, I want to talk about that. So the AP tests, and again, we're very active in the advanced placement program, as everyone knows. And we received this great email or notification a while back, but congratulating to Narragansett Regional High School, which has been named to the 2023 AP School Honor Roll. Narragansett is a Silver Medal of Honor Roll recipient. Narragansett has had 55% of its seniors who took at least 1 AP exam during high school, 32% of seniors scoring a 3 or higher on at least 1 AP exam, and 23% of seniors who took 5 or more AP exams. Obviously quite a compliment to not only our kids, certainly the parents, but our teachers who are very, very active in ensuring that kids are taking these courses, taking these tests, challenging themselves. There is a push and pull, quite frankly, between the AP program at a higher level, not us, bit between early college and AP exam, and so, or AP kind of process, and so, but we offer both here at Narragansett, and quite frankly, well, we've done very well, and that's honestly, it's a credit for the teachers, obviously, administrators and parents and kids. So that was neat. So we're a silver medal award winner in the AP round. So that's pretty good. Excellent. School choice and enrollment update. So, here we are, we're October 19th. And normally what I do is, and I can put this up, if you could, well, actually, I'll put it up, but if you could put the TVs on, that'd be great. This is not the, absolute October 1. We do not file, this report until the 27th. So one or two of these, one or two could change either way. So I'm not going on record at any point saying these are our October 1 numbers. When that happens, you lock them in and that's that. But I want to just kind of highlight some interesting facts, is that if you look at this, you see that we have a district total in September of 2023, which is last month, of 1479, we're at 1478. It's obviously, one student. When I look back to last October, and I looked at the October 1 number, and we had a total of 1,486 kids, okay? We currently have 1,478 kids. And one would say, well, simple math will tell you that we had a handful of kids more last year in October 1 than we did this year. But as we talked about, these numbers, you really have to look into them, because first off, we increased our total district residents from 1,305 to 1,318. We reduced the number of school choice from 181 to 160. So what I want to say is that we certainly dropped quite a few kids in school choice because we have no place to put them. And within, well, whatever, I won't say, because it's not October 1 to October 1, but we're still receiving a lot, and we're bouncing off of kids who go to Monty Tech, 20-some-odd kids, we have kids who graduate. We're still increasing the number of residents in this district. Okay, we expected we expected to see a drop, this year, but like more than just maybe whatever it might be ultimately, and we'll see a handful less unless a bunch of kids move in the next couple of days, but the fact of the matter is that our residents are still increasing. We're not taking as many school choice students in. That'll be problematic. We'll talk about that when we talk finance, obviously, when we get to those type of things, but we'll have a solid October 1 to October 1 comparison at the end of next year. Give it to them. Okay. I already did the school, I'm sorry. And honestly, at this point, because we've got all the subcommittee reports, etc. I don't really have a ton more other than the school pictures have been, the retakes were completed and done, and so so that's, I think that's in all 3 schools at this point in time, but I know that I saw that going on. We've really had a great fall so far, and we really have, and so far so good. And quite honestly, that's it for my report today, which is usually a good thing.
Do you have anything special planned for Warrior Fest?
So Warrior Fest, that's good. Yes, I didn't know if folks wanted to bring it up or if you wanted me to bring it up with the comments, but we're playing right now. We're up 13-0 against Quabbin in our homecoming football game, I'm told. The festivities are prepared, ready, and willing to move indoors if need be. We have plastered this everywhere that we can possibly plaster it. Warrior Fest is happening. It's going to happen indoors. And so if need be, you know, again, the timing of the rain, when we're ready to move inside, food trucks are still coming, fireworks are still gonna go off as of right now. Unless there's some type of safety issue that, you know, requires, the fireworks not to go off, you know? So we're still doing it. It's still here. We still got reptiles. I'm not sure what that means, but we got reptiles. Whatever. But we've got everything that was planned. It's gonna be moved inside. All the food and all the wonderfulness, between 4 to 6, and fireworks will go off at 7. Why 7? It's not dark till 7. And if you're gonna pay money for fireworks, you might want to see them. So we'll see it. Fireworks are still on, so come on out and, that's it.
Great. Moving on to curriculum and instruction. Hand it over to Molly.
In case you didn't hear enough data last meeting,
I never
MCAS, I'm going to share a little more with you today. So as a reminder, and for folks who are new on the committee, we, in addition to MCAS at the district level, we use a assessment 3 times a year to assess students' achievement and growth for literacy and math. So this is an internal assessment that we use. You'll hear BOY, MOY, EOY. Those acronyms stand for beginning of the year, middle of the year, or end of the year. And so we finished up our first round of STAR is the name of our assessment. Our STAR data is what I'm here to present to you today for our beginning of the year data. Just a quick review. This is what's assessed on STAR. So our youngest students, our students in kindergarten, and at the beginning of the year, our beginning of the year grade 1 students take a slightly different assessment. So typically in STAR reading, we're assessing word knowledge skills, comprehension strategies, analyzing literary texts, understanding author's craft, argument and evaluation text. And then on the math assessment, they're assessed in a variety of strands, including number and operations, algebra and algebraic thinking, geometry, and then measurement data, statistics, and probability. Our youngest students, as I mentioned a minute ago, are kindergartners. Throughout the year, instead of taking STAR reading and STAR math, they take what's called STAR early literacy. And what you'll see here on the screen is it assesses some different and more primary components of literacy, alphabetic principle, concept of word, visual discrimination, and it includes early numeracy. So our kindergarten students only take early literacy. Our first grade students at the beginning of the year will take early literacy and math, and then as they progress through the year, they'll take reading and math. We assess this as a benchmark assessment, and so what that means is there's a minimum threshold or a benchmark where we are expecting students to be at or above at each of those points of the year. That benchmark changes based on the normative data for that time of the year. And so when you hear is the student on or at benchmark, it's a certain score, essentially, the scale score model that they use. And so when students take the assessment, their scale score will put them into one of 4 categories, and you'll see the colored bands on the screen. They'll either be at or above grade level, so those are students quoted typically in green. On watch, which means that they are sort of, we call them sort of approaching or they're on the cusp, so they're pretty close to that, meeting that benchmark, but they're not quite there yet. Intervention, meaning that they are students who are going to require some additional support to get towards benchmark, and then urgent intervention. So you'll see that model our MTSS structure as well. The data I'm going to show you today is looking at the percent of students who are on above and on watch. So we're looking at the students that have met or exceeded the benchmark, and those that are pretty close, they're on the cusp. When we look at our literacy data, this is big picture data. Again, we're not drilling down here. But when we look, we have grades scoring between 59% of students that fall into this category up to 69%. So you can see the range will be fairly consistent across our grades with this data. One thing to keep in mind is we just looked at our MCAS data last meeting, and you may recall that our percent of students that were proficient on MCAS was much lower than what you're seeing on these assessment scores here. The MCAS is assessing end of the year standards, and all students take the same assessment who are in a grade level, right? When they take STAR, it is different. It is an adaptive test. So the questions get progressively harder or easier based on how students are performing, so it's more individualized. They are not all getting access to the exact same questions necessarily, and there is no writing component. It is 100% a multiple choice or silent response type assessment. So there are differences between these assessments and tools, so keep that in mind as we look at that data as well. When we looked at the same category, students who are at above or in that cusp group of approaching for math, what you'll see is a trend similar, where the majority of our students are within 63% to 88%. Sorry, majority of our grades have that percent of students falling in this category. What you'll see is, generally speaking, our math scores seem to be higher than our ELA scores or our reading scores, which is similar to what we saw when we looked at our MCAT statement. So there's some consistency we're seeing between the two assessments. And so to summarize, as I mentioned earlier, our classes for reading have cohorts of students or grades falling between 59 and 70% at above and approaching. To put that in context, when we did our beginning of the year assessment last year, 10 of our grades have increased in percent meeting at the beginning of the year versus the beginning of the year last year. So 10 of our grades assessed have had a growth from the beginning of the year data, which is exciting to see. Our math cohorts are between 63 and 88% at above and approaching. And that is an increase. 6 of those cohorts of students have increased from the beginning of the year last year. So we're seeing some great growth. Interestingly, the 2 cohorts in reading who did not show growth, one is the current grade 6, last year's grade 5, which we talked about at the last meeting. That's the cohort that had a revolving door of teachers as the year went on, and then a grade 12 students for the other. So the big takeaway for us is, generally speaking, just like we saw in the MCAS trend, our math scores seem to be higher than our reading scores. How does this information inform our work and our practice? First and foremost, it's confirming for us our focus on literacy as a district. So in our DSIP and then waterfalling down to our school improvement plans, we do have a strong focus on literacy and data analysis work. And so for us, that's confirming. We have put in place and are continuing to focus on the early grades literacy grant through DESE in our elementary school. So we have teachers, kindergarten through grade 3 who are part of our grant team, and then there's another PB team established through that grant, and so they are getting some additional and ongoing coaching from a state coach that comes in to help with literacy instruction and implementation of the curriculum and data analysis with teachers there. So that's been ongoing work for us. Our teachers actually earlier this week were all out for a state literacy institute and are participating in that as well. We're continuing to work on our literacy and action courses at the middle school. Those are the new literacy courses we built this year. Next week, our teams will be spending some time doing some additional curriculum writing to work on their upcoming units for that. And we are continuing professional development across all our schools with a focus on literacy instruction as well. So some of this data is confirming for us that the steps we're doing are in the areas that we're seeing more need when looking at our data. Additionally, we are really digging into our data a lot more. So our grade level teams and our departments, while we just looked at literally like the big picture data, they're digging in further. They're looking at the strands. So they are looking at, do we have strength in some of these strands? Do we have an area of need in some of these strands that might inform our curriculum or instructional calendars? They're also going down to look at, there's a really wonderful report and starts a standards alignment report, which connects student responses to the actual state frameworks for the grade levels they're in. And it helps teachers group students and identify where there's patterns and trends for a whole class versus a group of students or individual students. So this is used at length, especially at TES with their intervention blogs, to help identify and support students. And similarly in the other building, it's used to help with both curriculum and instruction decisions at the team level and individual lesson plans for students in their class or classes. So big picture data, I know I went pretty quickly, but you've heard me so much last month and the trends are so similar. I didn't feel the need to belabor, but I'm happy to answer questions.
questions?
I think I'm just really happy to hear that the teachers are involved in like making these grants to like help themselves more than it's a top-down type of thing. It seems like a ground-up type of work.
Yeah, our teachers have been working incredibly hard, learning how to use the data. So we're at a place where they do not have a shortage of data at all. If you ask anyone, they're like, oh no, I've got data. So now we're really working on how do we make it really usable and how do we use it to inform our practice and our instruction. And then they're really leaning in. Our teacher leader structure has been critical in the success of that. So our teacher leaders lead their common planning times or their department meetings, vertical team meetings in the middle school, and they are working ongoing each month with their building principal and with me on practices for data analysis. And as I mentioned earlier this year, I'm not sure if you had a chance to hear that or not, we are in the process of bringing in a new data analytic platform. It's called Analytic View. What it does is it takes the data from all of these places. So right now, our teachers have to go here to get their MCAS data, and here to get their STAR data, and student attendance data, and nurse visit data. And right, all of those data systems, behavior referral data. And so this system reads and pulls that data so they can go to one place and get a big picture of their class, grade level, student, group of students. So we're really excited and rolled that out with our teacher leaders, and we're really close to rolling that out with all of our teachers. So
You're going to love it.
I hope so. I think so.
The district I worked in we adopted ours last year. And we quickly saw an uptick in the amount of data nerds in our company. Like there's many more of us now.
I love it. I like just even something new.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's so colorful.
Great stuff. So see, next I wanted to talk about learning walkthroughs. And so our learning walkthroughs is an instructional practice districts had in place for quite a few years, but it was like a few other things sort of fell off of the plate when COVID came around. So the administrative team worked hard to bring this practice back last year, and we're starting it up again this year. And so learning walkthroughs is a practice where we create teams of teachers and administrators together on teams, and we go through and visit classrooms of around 12 to 16 classrooms at a time across the building. And the purpose of it is for us to look for instruction patterns and trends around instructional focus areas to help us inform celebrations for great things that are happening and next steps to strengthen instructional practice and student learning across school or district. And so we do it 3 times a year. Getting BOI, and we just are in the middle right now of our first round. So 2 of our schools have had a chance to do their learning walkthroughs, and our middle school will be doing it next week. And so every year we identify a focus of inquiry, a focus that we're going to walk classrooms and look for evidence of. This year, our focus of inquiry is standards-based instruction that focuses on a wide range of techniques to engage students to learn. And so there are 6 indicators that we look for. We use a rubric to go through and gather information that we see in classrooms that's evident of that. Things like, do students have ownership of their learning? Are there high quality questions that are probing deep thinking for students and helping teachers unpack misconceptions? Are there learning targets, success criteria that are aligned with the standard that drive the instruction and the tasks students are doing? So those are a few. And so it's a non-evaluative process for teachers. We don't use teacher names. We don't share out data on individual classrooms or teachers. It is really about looking for patterns and trends. So we train folks on the process, and when we go in, we're looking at what are evidence of student learning outcomes, what's evidence of instructional practice, all related to our focus of inquiry and our. So I just wanted to give you an update on the process. And lastly, just an update on a couple of district committees. Interestingly, it kind of came up earlier in the meeting too. We have 2 district-wide committees that we are bringing back up this year and reestablishing. They are the district-wide equity committee and the district wellness committee. So the district equity committee started up last year. It was a subcommittee, as was mentioned earlier, from the school committee. We broke that off, and we have a school committee representative on that committee now, and parents, teachers, and administrators. Excuse me. And last year, The stars just were not really aligned. We had snow days, I think 2 of the 4 meeting dates that we had. So the committee met and did some really great work establishing a mission, visions, core values as a committee. And then we met again later in the year after the snowy season because it just, Mother Nature was not on our side. So that committee is going to start back up this year, revisiting the mission, vision. And the drive for that committee this year, out of last year's school committee, is really going to be focusing on recommendations for dress code. So we'll be re-looking at our dress code in our handbook. And that committee will do some work to help give some recommendations there. Our wellness committee is in place to help with ongoing assessment and implementation of the district's wellness policy. That committee last year, since our policy had recently been put in place, used an assessment tool called the Massachusetts Local Wellness Policy Implementation Evaluation Form. I had to look back, but I knew it. And basically, we went through a process to assess where are we currently as a district in relation to the standards and practices outlined in our plan. So we assessed where our strength areas, where are our areas to really focus in on. And then we identified a handful of areas that we would focus on last year. That was heavily on getting student input on PACE tests and focusing on work in our cafeteria. This year, we're going to revisit that assessment form, and we're not going to reassess because it's usually a 2-year assessment, but we're going to look at that and say, okay, this is what we did last year. What's the next priority area? And we'll be working towards the implementation of our wellness policy.
Any questions or comments? I just had a quick question. Molly, I don't know if you mentioned it, but back to the learning walkthroughs, do you find that the teachers really like that? Like they respond to them? I mean,
Yes, so we have a system in place where yes, and yes, in the sense that teachers really, it's a gift as a teacher to be able to go watch other teachers. And it is such a gift. And we have teachers that participate across buildings. So we had 2 high school teachers earlier this week that were at TES for a learning walkthrough. And they're like, oh my God, like that's what happens in a kindergarten classroom. So it's great because it gives them a wider perspective outside of not just their classroom, but sometimes the grade levels that they observe. Of course, it's challenging sometimes because teachers take almost a full day to be out of their classroom. And a lot of them say, I want to be out, I don't want to do something. So it is a little challenging sometimes in that sense. But everyone that does participate typically tells us, oh my gosh, I learned so much. I got tips and tricks from my colleagues, or I got some great ideas. But it's challenging to take time to be out of your classroom. And as much as it is a non-evaluative process, it's a little intimidating when a group of 3 to 4 people walk into your classroom. So that's recognized, and we know that. But honestly, generally speaking, it's a really positive process.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you ever invite school committee members to be part of that?
We have not. The intimidation level.
No.
We have not passed anywhere. I'll think about that.
Thank you.
Do you do them in your?
It is not as structured as what you are describing, but we will occasionally choose a few things in the Mass Educator rubric, maybe standard 1 or standard 2, and say, let's gather up some troops and walk through some classrooms. Not formal, it's not connected to their evaluation. We have had school committee members participate. Sometimes they're announced, sometimes they're unannounced, but it's interesting because we find that when we walk through classrooms in the middle school, the teachers are far less nervous because they're used to having paraprofessionals and special education teachers in their faces all the time. So when the door opens, they just ignore it, they just keep going. But it still creates a level of anxiety. I'm just curious. All right, we're almost at the end here. Let's get through our subcommittee reports. So we start with finance and facilities. That's actually me. Let's see, we talked about the end of year reporting for fiscal year 23, working on excess and deficiency. 2024, everything's going along just fine. And as Emery said again today, there's not going to be budget freeze, or there's not necessarily yet.
Yes.
It's plastic, but still not. We talked a little bit about FY 25, how to connect with the administrative team for funding requests across schools within the district. We had a facilities update, talked about front horseshoes being high priority, right? And, field project. Working on getting a quote to separate the cost of paving the front parking lot and the horseshoe. Is that right? That's right, okay. You think I would remember this just a couple weeks ago. Let's see, we talked about fiscal year projects. We penciled in pending rural aid for the high school, baseball dugouts, laptops for staff. Library carpeting and lighting, talked about additional building maintenance, we got a field update. There has been a vendor chosen for the field project. The bid, there was only one bid received. It was $9,000 over what we wanted to borrow. But we were highly confident in the ability of the vendor that we had chosen. And that project will start in summer of 2024. Waiting on Title I grant. Talked about the athletic fees. We'll continue that as an agenda item for the Finance and Facilities Committee. And then we talked about meeting dates. So
New dates.
absolutely. Actually, I think they're right here at the bottom. Okay. District operations is also we meet on Wednesday. Next Thursday. Yeah, thank you. Pat. We were toying between next Thursday. We meet at 4:30.
Yep.
Labor management. Have anybody from who wants to? I want to share since you'll probably do the CPAC, right?
Well, we're both on.
Yeah, we're both on.
The labor management and the work environment, but, Sean is taking the lead for work environment and taking the lead for labor management.
So then you both need to.
I'll let you go first. Okay. Labor management, is with the, representatives, representatives of the NEA teachers. So that was a committee that existed last year. And the focus this year, felt great as we're moving on from working on coping with the effects of COVID and staffing, behavioral issues, and we're able to now move on to something their everyday life and things that impact them. Might be a mundane issue that they just no one was aware of. So it's great that the NDA representatives have the ability to come in without needing to go for a whole negotiation to say, hey, this right here is bothering us. We really need a town solution. And it's something that, might fall on Dr. C's plate too, follow through on, but it's a good effort for. So it's nice to see that we're able to now get to their daily lives. Thank you.
So the work environment committee is a new committee and it's the committee for the UFCW. We've only met once and it is an executive session, but what I can share is that we just kind of went over the basics. All stakeholders at the meeting feel that this meeting they're happy that it's been put together and that they wanted to continue. And so we're just kind of starting with the basics of, ongoing concerns that came out of negotiations last school year and new things to add as we progress into the school year. We thought about initially meeting every other month, but they'd like to meet once a month. And if it turns into switching that, then I think we're all open to that. But I think it's definitely, I think it's going to help everyone across the board because with UFCW, it represents the paraprofessionals, the secretaries, the custodians, and who am I missing? The cafeteria, thank you. So those are all very important roles around the district. So it's going to be great. So,
And Shauna, you can continue because our next
Yes.
committee report is our CPAC.
Yeah, so for the CPAC, it's this Special Education Parent Advisory Council. And they met at the beginning of the month, October 2nd. It was via Zoom. It was a very small group, and the reason for that is the group has kind of ebbed and flowed, and I think COVID put a real damper on members. So, in talking about that they want to form goals, they would like to, but what they really need is members to attend and so that they can get working on those kind of basic things for the group. Get new members to participate, they had some ideas about maybe meet and greets or putting out a survey to just try to engage the community. They also talked about, as for right now, that the meeting, it is by Zoom, but they are open to meeting in person again, and I believe that was in person prior to COVID. If anyone has any questions about the CPAC, they can email Christy Schwinger. She is the chair for this council. It's SEPAC, CPAC@NRSD.org. And if you're looking for more information, you can go on our website under special education. There's a separate tab to their CPAC page. And just a reminder to everybody that the CPAC is open to parents, guardians, family members, or any other members that would like more information. I'm sure people might feel intimidated to want to attend, not knowing if you've never, attended a meeting like that. It's a great way to network with other families. It's a great way if there is somebody speaking, or if there's a district member going over a topic. It's a great way to learn about resources. I'm sure we all need resources to better help our students. So I think it's definitely a way to learn about resources, whether it's being in the district, around our community, or beyond around the state. And it's just, it doesn't have to be if your child is on an IEP or a 504. It can be maybe there's pending one, or you're just, again, looking for support and resources. It's just a great way to best advocate for your child. And the next meeting is going to be on Monday, November 6th, via Zoom. And the link is also on that website that I just mentioned. So please, we need members. Reach out.
Thank you, Shauna. Next, our liaison to Student Advisory Council, which is Jen, and I know she just found out, reach out to start meeting to talk about Student Advisory Council. Legislative representative is me, and I will be completely honest with you. On October 11th, there was a joint committee meeting that I was registered to attend because it was hybrid and virtual. It was a virtual and in person, and I was not able to attend. But lucky for all of you, there is a webcast which I will be watching. And so next meeting, I will have a thorough report of all things that are going on in terms of legislation. But I can give you a heads up. It's everything from talking about climate change and artificial intelligence and anti-racist practices in classrooms. So you are in for one heck of a report. Next month will probably be like 4 hours long, so she's here for that. But I will have an update, I promise. Dr. C will be 4 of those hours. I will be the other 4.
You schedule a potty break for.
Potty break again, snaps.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So my sincerest apologies for not being ready to go for today, but I will be ready for next time. And our liaison for PTO. That you?
We have to vote,
Yeah. Oh, okay. It says vote next to it. It does. So I would entertain a motion to, Do we need someone?
I mean, I just joined the PTO.
So last year, we didn't really need a liaison because it was you, right? I just kind of showed up. But I think we need to officially motion to appoint Kat as liaison to the NRSD
PTO.
Temple Elementary PTO.
Okay,
Go ahead. I just have a question for, I guess that's what my question was, is who brought this to the committee for a vote? Was it PTO? Was it TS administration, or was it this board?
I think it was brought up by the board because we don't have a PTO liaison.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because I resigned as president.
So I'm wondering,
Beginning
who
of
was
the-
looking for that representation?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Jen and I had talked about how we don't have a.
Yeah.
So with us.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to appoint Kat. Yep. As a liaison to our NRSD. Yep.
So moved. Second.
Any comments, questions, concerns? All in favor?
I
Opposed?
first.
I'm so sorry, I'm not.
It's my fault. I was just so sorry.
I'm bigger than John.
Blame it on Stan.
And I vote yes, so that is unanimous, that's 6. Yes. Unanimous. Yeah, thank you, Chad. That's awesome. All right, school committee comments. Does anybody have any additional comments that they would like to make?
I
Jeff?
do have one additional comment. Yeah. I just want to say that it's not talked about that often, but I've been actually going to the unified basketball games, okay? And they are awesome. If anybody's looking for something, these kids enjoy that game more than anybody I've ever seen. And there are 2 more games. There is one, and just so you know, they're both home games. There is one on the 24th of this month, and then another one on November 3rd, and they're both home games. And again, I just have to say that watching these kids, you know, the enjoyment they get out of this, it puts a smile on my face, and I've never seen anybody more involved in this. So if you're looking for something good to do on those 2 nights, feel free. All the following day. That's it.
So awesome, been so much fun.
Is that a district, team or?
It is, I mean, it's like, that's a worry, so yes, it is, yes.
Any correspondence that we need to discuss? Oh, no. Okay, was there?
Oh, no, I just had a quick comment.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's just more of a thank you. Someone alluded to it earlier, I just want to thank everybody in, the district, in our buildings for keeping our kids safe. There's just so much going on in the news. There's been some things going around in the district, and I just appreciate all the training, professionalism, commitment to keeping our students safe, our staff, just everyone safe. It's, again, one of those I wish we never had to do, but the fact is we do, and,
Just great communication.
yeah. So I just want to say thank you, because it's, again, it's one of those extras.
I actually had a comment too that I forgot about. 2 comments, actually. So first comment is, I appreciate everyone's grace with me as I try to fill Jen's shoes for the evening. Hopefully it wasn't too painful. And don't have to see with the meeting. Very tough shoes to fill. And the second point being that we actually don't have another meeting until November 16th as a full board, which means it'll be coming after our MASC conference. So we'll have a lot to report on when we return. We're actually getting lots of good stuff from that conference, so we'll have a lot to talk about. We don't have any correspondence. Our next meeting is 16 to 5:30. Do we need executive session? Evening.
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay. So, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session per Mass General Law, Section 30A, Section 21A. Reason being to just, which reason are we?
Click on it, and then you can read it here. Subject.
To discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation with the UFC and or the NDA. If the meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body, and the chair so declares. We
So
will
moved.
not return into open session immediately following.
Second.
And we have to roll call, right?
Yes.
Says yes.
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 First and second.
Jeff first. I second.
There you go.
Oh my gosh, I forgot.
We did it.
Big shame.
Sorry, so I'm stealing.
Yeah. It might make any sense to you, but